shocking truth revealed. Marine and his incredible K9 transform little girl's heartbreaking plea. Jake Thompson sat on his creaky porch, staring out at the golden fields that blurred into the horizon. The rustic charm of the old brick buildings around him did little to soften the weight of his memories. Vivid images of combat haunted him with every flicker of his mind. Nightmares jostled for dominance, each one pulling him back to his days as a Marine, back to the grit, the chaos, and most painfully, back to Max, his loyal K9 partner, who never returned from their last deployment. Jake's breath quickened as he fought off the suffocating grip of recollection, and his muscles tensed, rooted to the weathered wood beneath him. In the house next door, laughter spilled out like summer rain. 6 doors away, 8-year-old Lily was a whirlwind of unyielding joy, her spirit untainted by the world's bitterness. Would she understand? Would she see the scars he wore beneath his practiced facade? A life spent in solitude fortified Jake's walls, but Lily's laughter had a strange way of beckoning him to the world outside. The sun dipped lower, shadows creeping through the cracks of his defenses. He felt an unsettling desire to connect, to find camaraderie again, even as he feared the exposure it demanded. From the corner of his eye he noticed her. She flitted past like a firefly searching for adventure. Suddenly, she stood before him, eyes bright with an innocence Jake thought lost forever. "Can Max help fix the park?" she chimed, asking about a dilapidated play area down the street. Her question pierced through his silence and settled upon his heart like a stone. The weight of her earnestness sent a jolt of clarity and fear through him. Could he let himself venture out again? His mind wrestled with the idea of rekindling a sense of purpose, yet anxiety churned within him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake fought an internal battle. The thought of getting involved gnawed at him. The park, once vibrant, now a graveyard of broken swings and memories, represented more than rubble. It echoed the brotherhood he lost. But was he ready to confront that yearning? He hesitated, contemplating his role, grappling with the fear of failing Lily and himself. Would he be strong enough to mend the scars that had tightly bound his soul? Each heartbeat reminded him of his isolation. Could he truly break free? As tensions around the park began to mount, whispers of a councilman's vendetta against veterans spread like wildfire. Doubt clouded Jake's spirit, twisting his gut into knots. What if the community had abandoned him? Their fight threatened to unravel with flickers of hopelessness clawing at his resolve. He stood on the precipice of vulnerability, increasingly uncertain. Was he attacking an unwinnable battle? The thunderous pulse of his past began to clash with the soul light of hope, an 8-year-old girl whose dreams flickered in rhythm with his haunted heart. With fingers gripping his tools and a determination building amid chaos, Jake faced a darker truth. Could a man once shattered find healing in the innocence he once thought mere energy? Would facing the councilman not only reveal his strength, but uncover the courage buried deep within? While doubt ladled anxiety over his spirit, there, right behind the laughter, lay the tender hope of a friendship waiting to take shape. But as the shadows loomed larger, and Jake edged closer toward his reckoning, the road ahead glimmered faintly, a challenging path strewn with memories he couldn't outrun. The morning sun peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across Jake's porch. Today felt different. An unsettling energy crackled in the air, echoing his heartbeat. He had spent the night wrestling with his thoughts, the faces of men who didn't make it out alive swirling in his mind. Yet there was a flicker of resolve igniting deep within him, a reaction to Lily's innocent plea. Perhaps it was time to step off the sidelines and confront the rubble of his past. The dilapidated park loomed not just as neglected land but as a battleground for his own growth. Every creak of the floorboards beneath him felt like a siren, beckoning him to rise, to act, to engage with a world he had kept at bay. He could feel the heat of determination begin to rise like the sun's warmth on his skin. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he gathered tools from the shed. Rotten wood, rusted nails, and faded paintbrushes beckoned like old friends. Familiar, yet daunting. He hadn't done manual work since the war, since the days of building barricades and securing bases. That tactile connection had always been a sanctuary amidst turmoil, a simpler way to channel pain into productivity. What could it offer him now? With every step toward the park, he felt the weight of anticipation pressing against his chest. The park's play area snagged on the edges of his thoughts. What would rebuilding it mean? As he arrived, the sight of shattered swings and crumbled structures sparked a visceral reaction. This was his battlefield, a place where he could redefine his legacy, but just as quickly, doubt gnawed at him. Were his skills still intact? What could a solitary Marine accomplish against the complexities of community expectations? The whispers of his neighbor's skepticism echoed ominously. Veterans don't belong in the town. They bring trouble. Those words slid into his mind like a serrated blade. Would everyone see him as an outsider forever, even if he put forth the effort to rebuild? Shifting focus, he lay his tools beside the remnants of the slide and glanced at the faded drawings Lily had made of what the park could become. A small smile broke through his brow, igniting a flicker of warmth. Perhaps he could honor her spark, channeling his experiences toward something new. But would she still believe in him once the shine wore off? As he knelt among the debris, Jake's heart fluttered with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. The park felt like the edges of his past, colliding with the promise of what could unfold. Could he confront the councilman who threatened to bury the project? Standing at this crossroads of action and inaction shadowed by self-doubt felt like another call to arms. The clang of metal against metal soon morphed into a rhythm that seemed to draw passers-by. Mothers with their children paused, casting curious glances, faces painted with questions. Jake's breath quickened with every stare. They were watching him dig into the depths of his wounded pride. A knot tightened in his stomach. Could he shake the ghosts of judgment and let them witness his intent? Then, amidst his dismantling of the old swings, a woman approached. Her presence felt like an all-too-familiar challenge, a reminder of judgment and expectations. What could she possibly want? As their eyes locked, the air thickened with tension. Was she an ally or an obstacle? "Why would a man like you waste his time here?" she asked. The words felt like a gauntlet thrown at his feet. The moment had come, not only to confront her doubts, but to explore whether he could break through the chains binding him to his past. With clenched fists and pounding heart, Jake braced himself to respond, knowing that the answer might redefine his journey. The stakes were higher than he anticipated, where meaningful reconnection and personal growth intersected. In that moment of revelation, would he discover not only what he was capable of, but who he truly aimed to become in this uncharted territory? Jake inhaled deeply, the air thick with uncertainty and the smell of rusted metal. Her question hung in the air, heavy and charged. He took a step closer, the decision to respond bubbling up from within him. Because I need to. Because it matters. The truth of his words surprised him, as if they had cracked through the icy shell he had built around himself. The woman's brow furrowed, but beneath her skepticism, Jake spotted an ember of curiosity. Perhaps it was a flicker of understanding from someone who had also wrestled with doubt. "This place used to mean something to kids. I want to bring that back," he added, noting the passion in his voice growing stronger. "Are you sure you know how?" she questioned, tilting her head, probing for weaknesses in his resolve. He hesitated, memories surfacing of how uncertainty had often masked confidence during his military days. "I've built things before. This is just different." The admittance felt both liberating and terrifying, a step into vulnerability he had long rejected. A silence settled over them. Jake couldn't tell if she was weighing his sincerity or preparing for another round of skepticism. The distant laughter of children playing in the remaining patches of the park punctuated the stillness, a ghost of what once was. "Do you know the first step to rebuilding?" she finally asked. Jake felt the flutter of familiarity within the question. You start by tearing down the old. You make room for new growth. As soon as the words left his lips, realization dawned on him. This wasn't just about the park. It was a metaphor for everything he had been too afraid to confront. The war inside him demanded resolution, just as broken swings demanded repair. Okay then, she replied, her voice softer but still guarded. What's your plan? He looked at the faded drawings Lily had made and reminisced about her hopeful visions. In that moment, the pieces came together in his mind. Not just a physical plan, but a vision of connection and purpose. I'll start with this play area. I'll reach out to others. Not wait for them to come to me. I'll involve the kids, get their ideas, and show them they matter. The challenge felt daunting yet necessary, igniting a flicker of excitement within him that mingled seamlessly with the creeping anxiety. Sensing the shifting dynamics, Jake squared his shoulders and looked her in the eye. Will you help me? She studied him, her skepticism battling against the hope he had just ignited. You want my help after I questioned your worthiness? I'm asking for your eyes and ears, he clarified. I need to know what kids want, what they miss. I can't do this alone. To his relief, her posture softened, and a small smile broke through the initial tension. I might know a thing or two about children. They speak their minds. If you're serious about this, I'll support you. Her agreement was a lifeline, but Jake felt a wave of responsibility wash over him. This journey was no longer solely about repairing a park. It was about rebuilding his connection to life, humanity, and his own sense of self-worth. With a renewed sense of purpose, he picked up his tools ready to tackle the seemingly impossible. Yet amid the excitement, a sliver of fear lingered. Could he handle the deeper currents of community dynamics that would inevitably complicate his endeavor? Determination pulsed through him as he moved to clear more debris, an internal promise radiating from each swing of his hammer. Moments later, a group of children approached, curious and hesitant. They stared at him, eyes filled with questions waiting to be asked. Jake felt the weight of their gaze and swallowed a lump of dread in his throat. This was new territory. He braced himself for the challenge ahead. Would he be able to engage their hopes and dreams, or would he falter under the pressure? In that instant, as laughter and excitement echoed around him, he realized that the real battle had just begun. The burgeoning connections with both the children and the community loomed like a wall he had to scale. Would this venture lead to redemption, or would it expose deeper vulnerabilities he wasn't ready to face? Jake locked eyes with the children, feeling a shift begin to happen within. The moment of truth neared. One misstep could unravel everything he'd just built. As the laughter of the children dissolved into anticipation, Jake had one choice left: leap into the unknown, or retreat once again into the shadows. The children approached with wide eyes, and for a brief moment, their curiosity paralyzed him. Jake's heart raced as he scanned their faces, searching for a hint of what they wanted, what they needed from him, a man who had just pledged to bring back something they might not even remember. How could he make this park, this very space, relevant in their lives, when his own purpose felt so fragmented? Do you like to play here? He finally asked, breaking the silence, sounding more uncertain than he would have liked. The question felt dangerously simple, yet it hung in the air, waiting for an answer that could build or destroy his fragile momentum. One boy stepped forward, his cheeks smudged with dirt from an afternoon of carefree play. He shrugged, words barely escaping his lips. It's okay, I guess, but we need more swings and a slide. His impatience was palpable, a challenge in his gaze. Jake nodded slowly, trying to absorb the simple request, as if writing it down in the corners of his mind. More swings and a slide. Got it. But those words felt flimsy against the enormity of his task. A girl, slightly older with a determined expression, chimed in. And the old merry-go-round. We used to love that. Each word she spoke felt like a breadcrumb that called out to Jake's buried ambition. He hadn't just committed himself to a renovation. He had opened a dialogue he had long avoided, the raw language of dreams and desires. Okay, he said, more confidently this time. We can work on that, but how can I make this place fun for all of you? Add a climbing wall, another child suggested, excitement crackling in his voice. A rush of adrenaline surged through Jake as the children animatedly began debating and sharing ideas. He felt the sharp pangs of doubt retreat as he found himself fully engaged, a facilitator of their visions rather than the isolated architect of his own redemption. They were laying the foundation for their playground, and he was there, scaffold in hand, ready to construct it. With each suggestion, he connected their aspirations to his deeper need for belonging and purpose. Each proposal served as a revelation, laughing off the inadequacies he'd carried since his return from deployment. He was no longer simply a man trying to reclaim a space. He was breathing life back into it, but the thrill were intricately laced with anxiety. Would these children's voices be enough to push him through the obscured chaos within himself? Taking a deep breath, he turned to the girl who spoke about the merry-go-round. "Why was that your favorite?" he asked, hoping to peel back layers of nostalgia and find a collective memory they shared. She paused, her brow furrowing as if finding the right words was a task of great significance. "Because we spun around until we felt dizzy, and then we'd fall, laughing and shouting. It was fun, like everything was possible." Her words resonated within him, shutting down the fear that stood as a barrier. That sounds so familiar, the essence of what had been true during his childhood. Maybe, just maybe, they were about to manifest that same euphoria again. Jake felt the shift around him. The laughter was not just about the past, but a means to create new memories, to heal. He pulled out a worn piece of paper, a makeshift notebook he'd used to jot down ideas. "Let's draw our park together. We'll turn it into what we need, together." The children lit up, and he could see their imaginations begin to spiral out in vivid colors. Instinctively, he pressed on, as if stretching a muscle he had long neglected, encouraging them, sketching out their dreams on paper. Each outline represented dreams untethered from his past and interlocked with their future. Yet, as he scribbled with enthusiasm, a voice whispered in the back of his mind, was this fleeting joy sustainable? Could he hold on to it even when the realities of funding, planning, and community support loomed? What if the world offered resistance, shattering their tender dreams? The laughter swirled around him as the children excitedly examined their drawings. It was intoxicating, this shared vibe of creativity. But Jake couldn't shake the thought that what he had awakened might also lead him into deeper conflict. His resolve faltered, wondering if he had the strength to confront challenges beyond those innocent smiles. He had taken the plunge into this rebuilding process, but somewhere in this newly forged commitment, there lurked an inevitable confrontation. Not just with logistics or resources, but with part of himself he hadn't yet faced. Would he rise to the challenge, or would his fears choke the vitality from this endeavor? As the children eagerly worked on the sketches, Jake realized the time had come to engage not just with them, but with himself in a much deeper way. As Jake leaned over the table, absorbed in the creative frenzy of the children around him, his thoughts began to whirl. He admired their innocence, how their laughter filled the space that had once felt so empty to him. And yet, beneath that surface joy, he felt the familiar weight of uncertainty pressing on him. What if he faltered? What if the reality suffocated this fragile moment of inspiration? One child raised his finger, pointing to a crude drawing of what looked like a rocket slide. "And we need this, a slide that goes whoosh, up in the sky." The boy's enthusiasm was infectious, and the other kids erupted in approval. Jake smiled, caught up in their fervor, but inside, the voice of doubt crept back. Could his vision of this park truly encompass the wild dreams of these children? Was he even capable of leading this project when his own life felt so tumultuous? The drawing session seemed like a distraction from an underlying truth he was trying to evade. The laughter faded into a background hum as he wrestled with the whispers of his past, the memories of a world far removed from carefree childhoods. There were so many unanswered questions lurking just beneath the surface. Could he truly transform this park? Was it really about the equipment and the space, or was it about something deeper, something he had buried in the trenches of his own experiences? "Jake, can you help me with this?" The determined girl who had mentioned the merry-go-round beckoned him closer, her paper filled with colorful crayon sketches. He leaned in, genuinely curious about what she envisioned. "Of course," he replied, trying to regain the bright energy that surrounded him. "What are you thinking?" Her brow furrowed, and for a moment she seemed miles away, lost in thought. "If we make this park great, everyone will come. But will they stay? Or will we just get bored like before?" Her words struck him like a jolt. Here they were, in the middle of building dreams. And yet, here she was articulating his deepest fear. The vision was one thing, but sustaining that joy, that connection, could that truly happen? "Boredom is a part of growing up," he found himself saying, choosing his words carefully. "But that's why it's important to keep it fresh and fun. You all have the power to decide how this park evolves." The weight of responsibility descended upon him. They trusted him to guide their dreams into reality. But could he? Each child saw this park not just as a play area, but as a canvas for adventure. And it dawned on him that perhaps that's all he ever wanted too. A place that felt authentic and purposeful, full of promise. As the group continued to sketch their ideas, Jake stepped back. He needed to confront the dissonance within himself. He found a corner away from the chaos, drawing a shaky breath. This endeavor wasn't just about playground equipment, it was a mirror, reflecting back the components of his own life. Could he allow the joy they were creating to counterbalance his own shadows? Finally, he made the decision to share his fears. Summoning the courage, he turned back to the children. "You know, I've fought through some hard times too. This park means a lot because it feels like I'm rebuilding just like you are." Eyes shifted toward him in various states of wonder and empathy. One boy spoke up. "Then it's okay to be scared. That means we're brave, right?" The simplicity of his recognition struck a chord with Jake, unleashing a wave of relief that mingled with determination. If these children could articulate their fears in the midst of their joy, perhaps he could too. But the revelation prompted a larger question. How would he take the lessons learned from this shared space back into his life outside the park? And could confronting this fear lead to a real sense of belonging he desperately sought? Jake felt ready for the next phase of his journey, but just as he was about to immerse himself fully in this newfound resolve, a tightness gripped his chest. The reality of funding, planning, and community involvement loomed, ready to rear its head just when he began to feel hopeful. As the children continued their spirited discussions, Jake realized he must delve deep into the challenges that awaited him. He would need a plan, a true vision that encompassed not only their aspirations, but the tenacity required to deliver. Would he navigate through the complexities swirling on the horizon, or would the weight of his past chains pull him down just as he began to reflect the vibrant light of hope? And as he prepared to take the next critical steps, he wondered, who would he become in the process? Jake stood in the corner of the room, the crayon drawings blurring around his periphery, as his mind wrestled with the towering expectations he had begun to build. The laughter of the children, a symphony of unrestrained joy, contrasted sharply with the tightening coil of anxiety in his chest. This park, this chance to breathe new life into a space long overshadowed by neglect. Could he truly be the one to shepherd it through its birth? The weight of commitment loomed heavy. Up to this point, he had been a participant in their gaiety. But now he felt the mantle of leadership settling upon his shoulders, suffocating and daunting. What if he failed? What if he couldn't pull it off? It wasn't just his vision on the line. It was their dreams resting in his hands. He inhaled deeply, attempting to steady his racing thoughts. He needed a plan that transcended mere design and budgeting. This park had to reflect a deeper understanding of community, a refuge rooted in authentic engagement, not just empty swings and slides. It was a revelation he hadn't anticipated. Was he ready to transform this project from fantasy into something tangible? Feeling the momentum shift within himself, he sought to find grounding and clarity. The children's sketches told a story that was vivid and rich. He approached their table, eager to build on their enthusiasm. "Okay, team, we've got some incredible ideas here," he began, gesturing towards the crayon-filled pages. "But how do we make whoosh a reality?" Their tiny faces lit up at the challenge. Drawing deeper into their imaginations, they began exchanging wild concepts. Interactive sculptures, whimsical themes, parks that morphed with the seasons. Inspiration sparked like fireworks in Jake's mind. As he listened, it dawned on him that he had to cultivate his own vision while anchoring it to the hearts of these children. He recalled the girl's earlier question, how to sustain the excitement once the dust settled. "Let's think about how we keep this park alive," Jake prompted. "What will make our park a place everyone talks about over and over?" The dialogue that ensued was electric. Children ignited with fervent suggestions, invoking a sense of belonging that transcended mere play. They spoke of community events, art projects, and special days dedicated to celebrating everyone who contributed. More than simply encouraging his charges, Jake felt currents of empowerment coursing through him. In the flashes of insight shared by his young collaborators, he recognized threads from his own past struggles. There was a deep, intrinsic truth in their words. Shared experiences create lasting bonds, and sustainable joy often lies in the unexpected connections forged between people. Jake had to internalize this lesson for himself. He would need to extend these ideas outside their bubble of creativity, to rally parents, caretakers, and stakeholders who might initially be skeptical. How could he transform their simple suggestions into convincing arguments that spoke to adults? It was a daunting task, one that required a blend of strategy and personal conviction. He rose from his crouch, purpose surging within him. "Let's make a list of all the people we want to bring on this journey," he encouraged, an excited edge to his voice. "Let's think through how we can engage them here." As they charted a course for the future, Jake glimpsed a way to merge his own self-discovery with the project. This park would be a testament not only to the children's dreams, but also to his evolution into a leader who faced his fears, rallied others around a common purpose, and ignited the spark of community in his own life. But as he scribbled down names and ideas, a deeper fear settled. Would the adults accept the vision crafted by the children? Would they listen, or would they cast aside the voice of innocence in favor of practicality? Jake's thoughts churned wildly. He realized the time had come to step out of his comfort zone. This was more than just about funding and logistics. It was about engaging the adults, about confronting the skepticism that stifled creativity. Could he confront the resistance he might face? As he looked at the hopeful faces around him, he knew he had to try. But this new path toward engagement left him with a burn in his gut, a pang of uncertainty about what lay ahead. Emboldened by his passion and their youthful energy, Jake braced himself for the next daunting step in the journey. Would he manage to bridge the imagination of children with the constraints of adult perception? Or would he find the societal barriers too high to climb? Jake stepped out of the room, the exuberance of the children now a memory of color in a gray adult world. Each crayon-driven dream echoed in his mind as he faced his first true test, engaging the adults who held the keys to his vision. He could almost feel the skepticism dangling like a shadow behind him, a constant reminder of how easily dreams could be dismissed. He paced the empty hallway, grappling with the realization that enthusiasm alone wouldn't sway hardened perspectives. How could he weave the children's imaginative tapestry into a narrative that resonated with parents, busy absorbing the weight of responsibility? It was one thing to inspire kids, quite another to convert that energy into a viable proposal for grown-ups entrenched in practicality. As he navigated through his thoughts, a flurry of strategies clashed in his mind. He had to connect the dots between joyous creativity and stark realities. It required more than passion. It demanded research, statistics, and clear communication. Could he articulate the benefits of a lively park to parents who only saw a budget? Jake clenched his fists, resolve rising within him like a cresting wave. He decided to host an informal gathering, an opportunity to present his ideas. His heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. Inviting parents felt like casting a line into the depths of uncertainty. Would they embrace the children's vision or view it as wishful thinking? He sighed, contemplating how many times he himself had dismissed ideas because they felt unattainable. Jake reached for his phone and started reaching out to parents' contacts. With each call, he confronted creeping self-doubt, But with every confirmed RSVP, a flicker of determination sparked anew. He wasn't just showing adults crayon drawings, he was appealing to their deeper yearning for a place that could foster joy and community. As the sun dipped low, painting the evening sky in hopeful hues, Jake drafted a presentation. His heart raced as he typed, firming up diagrams and potential structures of engagement. He planned to recount how the younger voices shaped dreams that echoed their deep desire for connection. With the clock ticking down to the meeting, Jake found himself engulfed in a storm of anxiety. He wrestled with the script he had drafted. Should he present the children's raw ideas in all their chaotic brilliance, or should he neatly package them into more digestible forms for the adults? His internal debate raged as he rehearsed the timing and delivery, afraid his passion might translate as naivete. Through the night, as he paced the floor and practiced his pitch before the mirror, Jake discovered something. He didn't just hope for acceptance. He needed to believe in the vision himself. It was a realization born from self-reflection. This would be the moment to demonstrate his commitment, grounding the ambition in clarity and community benefit. He could articulate how the park's vibrancy could translate into a healthier, more engaged neighborhood, transforming mere space into shared experience. As sleep wrapped him in blank silence, tugging at his eyelids, Jake felt a hybrid of anxiety and excitement reverberate within. He could see himself standing before the parents, storytelling with fervor, engaging their hearts as he had with the children. And yet, fear loomed. What if they pushed back relentlessly? What if his vision crumbled under adult realism? In the quiet of the night, facing these fears deepened his resolve. It became not just about the park, but also about him battling his past fears. The weight of this pursuit grew heavier. Ideas had always come easily in creative spaces. But could he convey that power to a crowd of skeptics? The night faded to dawn, and he prepared for the gathering, a mixture of determination and dread thrumming through him. Little did he know that this meeting would not only shape the park's future, but also test the limits of his personal growth in a way he hadn't anticipated. Would he emerge as a champion or cower as a dreamer? With heart pounding and uncertainty looming, Jake stepped through the world of adult expectations, ready to face the voices of reason that might try to drown out the laughter of children. The next moment would prove pivotal. Could he rise to the occasion? Or would this turn into an arduous struggle for acceptance? Jake arrived at the venue, barely recognizing the oppressive weight of expectation in the air. The small community hall felt like an arena, vulnerable and exposed. He was both the gladiator and the audience, critical eyes assembling around him. With every parent that trickled in, he sensed the stakes rising. What he originally considered an informal gathering morphed into a high-stakes negotiation of aspirations. The laughter of children flickered in his mind like a distant echo, promising freedom and hope, but contrasting sharply with the seriousness around him. He positioned his notes on the table, careful to maintain an air of calm, even as internally he wrestled with the tidal wave of doubt. Was he the right person to present? His gaze traveled to the other side of the room where parents mingled, exchanging solemn nods and raised eyebrows, their skepticism like a palpable entity circling him. Jake gripped the edge of the table and took a deep breath, reminding himself of the visions that fueled his desire to advocate for the children. When the clock struck 6, he took center stage. The murmuring voices finally quieted. His heart raced as he stared out at the sea of faces, each pair of eyes possibly reflecting disbelief or willingness. But he needed their engagement. Summoning the courage birthed through countless hours of preparation, he began with a simple question. What do we want for our children? He noticed an immediate shift. Defensive postures softened, and a few nods emerged. He breathed out, continuing with a compelling narrative of the crayon drawings, framing them not merely as imaginative expressions, but as windows into their future, a vibrant space where connections flourished. He articulated how his vision could provide not just a park, but a catalyst for community growth, a sanctuary for creativity and laughter, and a resource for holistic development. Midway through his presentation, an unexpected voice sliced through the air, challenging him directly. But how can we justify this with our limited budget? Aren't there more pressing issues at hand? The sharpness in the voice was matched by a furrowed brow and crossed arms. A sense of unease returned. In that moment, Jake felt the fractures in his confidence deepen. The crayon drawing seemed far less impactful against the harsh reality of financial constraints and practicalities missed in his planning. His mind raced, searching for an anchor. Did he really believe what he was proposing? He found himself faced with a deeper dilemma. Should he revert to an overly cautious presentation, citing statistics and case studies, or stay true to his passion that might appear naive to those around him? Then it hit him. This was his defining moment. Clarity drowned the murky waters of doubt. He leaned forward, shoulders squared, his voice steady. I understand the reservations. I feel them as acutely as you do. But what we need to reconsider is what our children truly need. A safe haven for exploration and connection. If we don't invest in their joy today, we risk a future where that joy is foreign. Let our dreams be profitable to our spirits, if not our pockets. As his words hung in the air, he seized the momentum. He shared anecdotes of other communities that had invested in similar projects and witnessed transformations beyond mere costs, enhanced well-being, community spirit, and a collective sense of ownership. With each argument, he could see the flicker of intrigue beginning to light up some of the skeptical faces. However, that initial engagement soon revealed its frailty when another parent raised her hand, her expression contemplative yet firm. But do children truly recognize the weight of our responsibilities? In their innocent dreams, they often overlook practicality. Her challenge struck like lightning, illuminating his biggest fear. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on him again, but it sparked an idea. What if he turned this back on them? Maybe you're right, but think of this. How far can we let that practicality stifle our dreams? We have to balance the delicate act of nurturing imaginative thinking while addressing the practical realities of parenting. Let us venture to define what is truly essential for our kids' emotional and social development. As he spoke, he noticed the slightest shift in body language among a few parents, intrigued by his daring challenge. The decision to engage in confrontation had birthed a flicker of connection, albeit fragile. The momentum swung back in his favor, and he pressed on, igniting their imaginations further with ideas of community engagement and participative planning. But the clash navigated deeper waters as a voice from the back chimed in. This isn't just about us, Jake. Our kids deserve this, sure, but how will we pay for it? What's your plan? In that moment, Jake understood that his vision would require more than bravado. It would demand strategic thinking, a grounded approach interwoven with energy to keep the dream alive. Would he be able to redefine not just a park, but perceptions of what investing in children truly meant? Challenging the emerging dialogue, Jake felt both daunted and invigorated. He had a chance to not only push for the park, but to evolve. Could he embody the change he sought by reshaping an entire conversation? As he stood on the precipice of this revelatory exchange, the uncertainty raged within him. The struggle was morphing, and with each question and answer, Jake sensed the potential for something much greater than himself. Would he find the clarity needed to design a sustainable future for the dreams cherished by both children and parents alike? The murmurs of the crowd began to blend into an indistinct hum as Jake's thoughts swirled. Each query from the parents felt like a new wave crashing against the fragile cliff of his confidence. He had assumed the presentation would mostly be a formality, a way to rally support for the park, but it had metamorphosed into a gauntlet. Not just attacking his ideas, but his very identity as an advocate for the children's dreams. What was the framework of his greater vision? Did it hinge solely on the park? He had painted it as the embodiment of joy and connection, yet he hadn't hammered down the tangible elements to sustain that dream. He felt exposed, as if the air in the room grew heavier. He scanned the worried expressions that hung in the air, each parent looming with unyielding scrutiny. It was becoming glaringly evident that his narrative had to evolve. This moment was no longer just about selling an idea. It was about building a framework of trust, establishing a partnership that encompassed both dreams and practicality. Taking a deep breath, he reassured himself that this was not merely a setback. It was an opportunity to dig deeper into his capabilities as a leader. "I appreciate the concern over budgetary strains," he started, keeping his voice level yet firm. "Let's think of this not just as an expenditure, but an investment in our children's futures. A chance to shift the paradigm from a reactive mindset to a proactive one." With newfound determination, he adjusted his posture, leaning slightly forward. "Imagine if we collaborated with local businesses for sponsorships or engaged older children to design programs. What if we could host fundraisers built around the very joy we wish to foster? This park could become a living part of our community, not an isolated project but a thriving hub for multiple generations." Jake's words hung there, the idea barely grasped. Would they grasp it or cast it aside? The question loomed heavily on him, but he understood that shifting perceptions required tenacity and clarity in his vision. The atmosphere in the hall shifted again as a few parents exchanged glances, uncertainty in their features melting into curiosity. He seized the opportunity, sharing stories from other towns where strong community engagement had turned initial resistance into successful ventures. "Engagement brings accountability," he argued. "The children can take ownership, leading us to a sustainable solution, while also bringing joy and much-needed focus to their development." However, doubt still floated in the corners of the room. A mother raised her hand. Her initial skepticism softened now, but her question still sharp. "And if we find that support is lacking? If we attempt all of this without guaranteed funding?" A chill rushed through Jake. He had rehearsed countless angles but had not prepared enough for rejection. What if they indeed failed to generate interest? The thoughts broke through his facade of confidence. In that moment, he bared his vulnerability. "I have to be honest. I don't have all the answers. But that's why it's crucial for us to come together and cultivate a shared vision. Alone I can only dream, but together we can work to ensure it becomes a reality." The tension in the room hung thick but began to dissipate slightly. He watched as parents began to acknowledge one another, their conversations transforming from skepticism to tentative brainstorming. This was not merely a discussion about a park anymore. It was about establishing a dialogue, reigniting passion for collective dreams, and co-creating a vision. This was the professional awakening Jake desperately sought, yet even amidst the shifts around him, Jake felt the gnawing anxiety of the challenge ahead. Just bringing parents together was merely the prelude to an arduous journey of trust, funding, and sustained engagement. As he pondered this, a new question emerged, piercing through the crowd's anticipation. But what will happen if the enthusiasm fades? What if, in 6 months, we find ourselves back at this very square one? The challenge of continuity loomed ominously before him, a cliff he had yet to scale. Jake recognized a pivotal truth. He needed to lay not just the groundwork for this park, but a roadmap for its future success. The pressure to instate lasting change intensified. For the first time, he understood that this was more than just about advocating for a vision. It was about effective leadership that went beyond passion. Could he lead them into not just a new project, but a new mindset? Determined, he resolved to begin building his strategies for retention and community engagement right then and there, as the conversation around him continued to unfold. But could he confront the deeper challenge of maintaining that momentum, once the initial excitement faded away? Jake stood at the threshold of transformation, observing the tangible shifts in conversation and engagement around him. His journey had evolved from solitary hesitation to a shared vision, blossoming in the very space he had feared most. The community began to embrace his ideas, breathing life into plans that once existed only in crayon sketches. The gathering progressed beyond expectations. Parents were no longer just voicing skepticism, but proposing collaborative efforts. As he staved off the creeping anxiety over future funding and continuity, he realized the essence of trust he was cultivating among these parents wasn't just for the park. It was a reflection of his own struggle for reacceptance in life. "Let's create a committee," he urged, channeling the collective energy into actionable steps. "We can gather resources from our network. We can host events and get local businesses involved. With your connections and the children's imagination, we can turn this into a sustainable project." His confidence surged like a lifeline, tethered to a shared dream. Then, As if striking a chord, a woman in the back piped up, "If we involve the kids in the planning and upkeep, they'll learn responsibility too." The room erupted in murmurs of agreement, reflecting a shift that sent a wave of warmth through Jake. Not only had he advocated for a park, but he was also co-creating a purpose, a bridge for healing and growth, not just for himself, but for every face in that room. It was invigorating. He was no longer merely a Marine plagued by nightmares. He was a man embracing hope and community. As they finalized their approach, Jake's heart swelled with gratitude and accomplishment. This effort wasn't just a solitary endeavor. It was a communal pledge to bring forth joy encapsulated in the innocence of childhood. The laughter of the children echoed in his mind like a triumphant anthem. The meeting concluded with palpable energy, discussions of follow-up actions filling the air. On his drive home, outcomes shifted from abstract notions into vivid possibilities. Engagements with local businesses, brainstorming sessions, and plans for fundraising began to coalesce in his mind as concrete strategies. Jake's shoulders were lighter than they had been in years as he approached his porch. With each step, the burdens of the past began to dissipate, revealing a renewed sense of pride. He had transformed hesitation into action, learned to channel his trauma into purpose, and opened himself to the gift of community. That evening, he embarked on another new step, writing invitations to parents for their first committee meeting. He poured his newfound energy into ensuring that the excitement they shared would be immortalized in action. Each word he typed felt like a brick laid in the foundation of the revitalized park, strengthening the path ahead. Jake lacked an all-encompassing plan or endless resources, but he understood that this was only the beginning. The fervor ignited that day sat beneath his skin, and as whispers of doubt resurfaced, he banished them with reminders of how far he had come. He was a Marine who had stepped out of shadows, confronting not only the ruins of a play area, but the wreckage of his own spirit. With Max in his heart and the children's laughter guiding him, Jake felt a profound metamorphosis unfold. In confronting not just a dilapidated park, but his fears, insecurities, and despair, he had resurfaced as a leader. No longer confined by isolation, he established himself as part of something larger than himself. A community fortified by purpose, hope, and shared responsibility. This realization dawned upon him. Jake had not only rebuilt a park, if that's what he wanted, it could be a legacy of connection and joy for future generations. With that, he crafted his final email for the day. Its subject line, "Our journey begins," radiated optimism. Each word he wrote felt like a true achievement, bridging isolation with community, despair with hope. He hit send, then paused, marveling at the profound weight of transformation. The world felt brighter, their future ignited by children's dreams and united minds. It was not merely about constructing new swings and slides. It was about sustaining joy and cultivating connection amidst the bittersweet threads of life, creating space where laughter could thrive endlessly. He had grown into a champion of transformation, proving to himself and others that rebuilding was possible. Now, Jake knew he had achieved a solid confidence in navigating life with newfound purpose, recognized competence in engaging with complex community dynamics, and solidified his position as a leader who understood the delicate dance of fear and fulfillment. He had sought to fix a park, but in kinder hands, he had completed a much greater task. He had crafted a home for joy. Join Jake on his continuing journey as he tackles the next stage of community engagement, supporting children and unearthing deeper connections. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support means the world. Comment with your reactions and theories about Jake's transformation. Engage with this journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the joy of overcoming together.